Can't truly call this breaking news because it's not clear what it means, but the Associated Press is reporting Interior Secretary Ken Salazar says he will issue an order imposing the Obama administration drilling moratorium on exploratory wells in the Gulf of Mexico. This following today's injunction against that moratorium by a U.S. District Court judge. In our fourth story tonight, the extreme nature of that judge's ruling, his personal investment in the oil industry and the Obama administration's immediate appeal. Congressman Ed Markey joins me in a moment. The facts here paramount. There are 3,600 oil and natural gas production platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. 3,600. The Obama administration moratorium was to affect only 33 exploratory wells in the Gulf. In other words, the moratorium affected less than 1/100th of all production or exploratory wells in the Gulf. And you will recall that the moratorium was imposed soon after this happened, the disaster on the Deepwater Horizon, which was, lest anybody forget, an exploratory well. 11 men died, and the initial 1-month moratorium on exploratory wells issued by the Interior Department was then extended to 6 months so that experts could hurriedly determine the cause of the Deepwater Horizon disaster before work on other exploratory wells continued. However, U.S. District Judge Martin Feldman in New Orleans, acting on the request of a company which ferries workers to and from those exploratory sites, granted a preliminary injunction. An injunction is an extraordinary legal remedy, but sounding much like an oil company executive himself, Judge Feldman explained, quoting, "The Deepwater Horizon oil spill is an unprecedented, sad, ugly, and inhuman disaster. And what seems clear is that the federal government has been pressed by what happened on the Deepwater Horizon into an otherwise sweeping confirmation that all Gulf deepwater drilling activities put us all in a universal threat of irreparable harm. The judge has the authority to review the Interior Department's moratorium if the government action is, quote, arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion, or not otherwise in accordance with the law. An invalid agency decision to suspend drilling of wells in depths over 500 feet, continued the judge, simply cannot justify the immeasurable effect on the plaintiffs, the local economy, the Gulf region, and the critical present-day aspect of the availability of domestic energy in this country." The judge's ruling was, surprisingly enough, applauded by big oil. And as Think Progress notes, Judge Feldman, like many judges in the Gulf region, happens to own a large number of stocks in the energy industry. In his 2008 filing, the judge's holdings were indicated as 17 different energy company stocks, including Transocean, which built the failed rig, Halliburton, which cemented the failed rig, plus two of BP's largest U.S. private shareholders, BlackRock and J.P. Morgan Chase. The Obama administration's reaction to Judge Feldman's ruling was swift.
We will immediately appeal to the Fifth Circuit. The President strongly believes, as the Department of Interior and the Department of Justice argued yesterday, that continuing to drill at these depths without knowing what happened does not make any sense, and puts the safety of those involved.
Joining me now, as promised, Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts, chairman of the Energy and Environment Subcommittee. Congressman, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Before we get to Judge Feldman's ruling, do you have any better idea than we do about this report out of the AP that Secretary Salazar is going to impose a moratorium on drilling?
I don't. I just heard about it, but I think it is a wise decision. If he's made it, just go right back at him. If there's another legal authority that makes it possible for him to impose a moratorium on these 33 rigs before they've been checked for safety, then I think he's making just the right decision.
And Judge Feldman's decision today, and especially in light of the investment portfolio that we were made aware of, what's your reaction to that?
Well, something has to explain Judge Feldman's decision. It's the worst decision since the referee in the USA-Slovenia soccer game last week. Also inexplicable. If any one was arbitrary and capricious, it was Judge Feldman in this case. It's clear that these rigs need to be checked for safety. It's clear that MMS fell down on the job. It's clear that the oil industry did not put into place proper safeguards, and it would be reckless for these rigs to be allowed to operate in ultra-deep water until there is a full safety inspection.
We have a further update now from the AP, and I'll get your reaction to this if I can. Mr. Salazar said in a statement this evening that the new order will contain additional information making clear why the 6-month drilling pause was necessary in the wake of the Gulf oil spill. The judge in New Orleans who struck down the moratorium earlier in the day complained there was not enough justification for it. And one additional paragraph here. Salazar pointed to indications of inadequate safety precautions by industry on deep water wells. He said he would issue a new order in the coming days showing that a moratorium is needed. Your reaction to that as we get a little flesh on these bones?
Good. Well, what he clearly has done is fill out the record. So, for example, Transocean. This rig which BP was using was a Transocean rig, which, by the way, was registered in the Marshall Islands. In the Marshall Islands, Transocean then was able to select the company, which would then determine whether or not the rig was safe. Then Transocean can move that rig, Marshall Island registered, into the Gulf of Mexico, into American waters, and they have complied with the safety regulations. Now, it's one thing to drill offshore, it's another thing to offshore your safety regulations, which is what has been happening. And so to go back, to review, to see where the holes are in this safety process is something that I think is necessary, and if it's not fully and completely finished, could lead to irreparable harm, because the one thing we don't need is 2 rigs at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico.
And it is superb to see the Secretary of the Interior doing something and doing something in a hurry in the wake of that ruling. Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts happening to be with us as we try to understand the breaking news. Thank you for your insight and for helping us do so, sir.
Thank you.